A single silver jet disintegrated over the Red River Delta, and in that instant, a highly trained American aviator became a hostage of history. He ejected into a world he only knew from maps, falling straight into the hands of the very people he had been bombing. Within hours, he would enter a centuries-old fortress that his fellow captives would soon mockingly call the Hanoi Hilton. But behind the dark humor lay a brutal reality of psychological warfare, isolation, and an underground battle of wills that lasted for nearly a decade. How did these elite aviators, trained for high-tech aerial combat, survive when stripped of their technology, their freedom, and their identities? The answer lies not just in their physical endurance, but in a secret, silent language tapped through concrete walls. This is the story of the American POWs in Hoa Lo Prison, a tale of survival, propaganda, and the unexpected human connections that emerged from the darkest corners of the Vietnam War. To understand the scale of this ordeal, we must look at the sheer numbers. Between 1,964 and 1,973, hundreds of American aircraft were shot down over North Vietnam. The pilots who survived ejection were highly prized by the North Vietnamese government. They were not ordinary soldiers. They were officers, highly trained, and possessed valuable military intelligence. More importantly, they were powerful political bargaining chips in a war that was being fought as much in the court of global public opinion as it was on the battlefield. For the families back home, the fate of these men was a source of constant, agonizing anxiety. For the American government, they represented a complex diplomatic challenge. And for the men themselves, the stone walls of Hoa Lo would become the ultimate test of their military oath, their mental sanity, and their basic humanity. These aviators had been trained to operate the most advanced machinery of their era, from the F-4 Phantom to the A-4 Skyhawk. They were accustomed to the clean, cold environment of high-altitude flight, where they held the power of life and death in their hands. In a matter of seconds, that power was stripped away. Plummeting toward the green canopy of the Vietnamese countryside, they were forced to confront a reality for which no survival school could fully prepare them. Upon reaching the ground, they were no longer masters of the sky. They were vulnerable, isolated individuals at the mercy of a population that had endured their bombs. The journey from the crash site to the gates of Hoa Lo was often a terrifying gauntlet of angry villagers and local militia, where survival was never guaranteed. The psychological shock of this transition was immediate and profound, setting the stage for a long, silent struggle that would define their lives for years to come. To understand how Hoa Lo became the focal point of the air war, we have to look at the skies over North Vietnam in the mid-1960s. Under Operation Rolling Thunder, the United States unleashed a massive bombing campaign designed to halt communist infiltration to the south and force Hanoi to the negotiating table. But North Vietnam possessed one of the most sophisticated air defense networks in the world, supplied by the Soviet Union and China. Surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft artillery, and agile MiG fighters turned the skies into a deadly gauntlet. When American planes were shot down, the pilots who ejected became instant strategic assets for the North Vietnamese government. They were not just prisoners, they were political leverage. The primary holding facility for these downed aviators was Hoa Lo Prison, a grim stone fortress originally built by the French colonial administration in the late 19th century to house Vietnamese nationalists. The French had called it Maison Centrale, but to the Americans, it would forever be known as the Hanoi Hilton. The first American pilot captured in the North was Lieutenant Junior Grade Everett Alvarez Jr., shot down in August 1964. For nearly a year, he was the sole American prisoner in the facility, facing an agonizingly uncertain future as the war escalated around him. As more pilots were shot down, the population of Hoa Lo grew, transforming the old colonial prison into a high-stakes arena of the Cold War. The prison itself was designed to oppress. Its thick stone walls, dark corridors, and tiny, poorly ventilated cells were built to break the spirit of anyone who entered. The French had constructed it with high walls topped with broken glass and high-voltage barbed wire, creating an escape-proof fortress in the heart of Hanoi. For the American pilots, accustomed to the freedom of the sky and the precision of modern technology, the sudden transition to this archaic, claustrophobic environment was a profound psychological shock. They were stripped of their uniforms, given simple pajamas, and isolated from the world. The dampness of the cells, the meager rations of pumpkin soup and bread, and the constant presence of rats and insects added to the physical misery. Yet, the physical discomfort was only a prelude to the psychological campaign that the prison authorities were about to launch against them. The North Vietnamese did not view these men as traditional prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention, arguing that because there was no formal declaration of war, the pilots were war criminals who had committed acts of aggression. This legal distinction would define the nature of their captivity and the treatment they received, setting the stage for a prolonged battle of endurance. The transition from the cockpit of a multi-million-dollar fighter jet to a damp, dark cell in Hoa Lo was a violent shock. Upon ejecting, pilots often faced immediate capture by local militia or angry villagers who had just witnessed their homes being bombed. The journey to Hanoi was hazardous, with captives sometimes paraded through villages where they faced the wrath of the local population. Once inside the thick stone walls of Hoa Lo, the real ordeal began. The North Vietnamese captors sought military intelligence, propaganda statements, and confessions of war crimes. To extract these, they used a combination of physical deprivation, solitary confinement, and intense interrogation sessions, known as quizzes. The prisoners were kept in small, poorly ventilated cells, sometimes with their feet secured in heavy iron stocks. The isolation was designed to break their spirit and make them compliant. Yet, even in these desperate conditions, the human instinct to connect and resist began to take hold. Senior officers like Commander James Stockdale realized that their survival depended on maintaining military discipline and communication. They had to find a way to talk to each other through the thick masonry walls, to share information, offer encouragement, and present a united front against their captors. This led to the widespread adoption of the TAP code, a simple 5x5 grid of letters that would become the lifeline of the Hanoi Hilton. The TAP code was originally introduced by Carlisle Smitty Harris, Philip Butler, Robert Peel, and Danny Denton in the summer of 1965. They remembered a 5x5 matrix from their military training and realized it could be adapted for communication through prison walls. The letter K was dropped and replaced by C, leaving 25 letters. The code operated on a simple coordinate system. The first set of taps represented the row, and the second set represented the column. For example, to transmit the letter A, a prisoner would tap once, pause, and tap once more. To transmit the letter H, they would tap twice, pause, and tap 3 times. By tapping on the walls, pipes, or even using the scraping of a broom, prisoners could spell out messages. A single tap, followed by another single tap, meant the letter A. 2 taps followed by 3 taps meant the letter H. Through this rhythmic, invisible network, the prisoners rebuilt their military hierarchy, shared news of the outside world, and sustained each other's hope. The code became so sophisticated that prisoners could transmit entire paragraphs in minutes, sharing jokes, medical advice, and tactical directives. It was a silent, persistent pulse that ran through the entire prison, proving that even behind stone walls, the human spirit could not be entirely isolated. This communication network was more than just a way to pass the time. It was a psychological shield. It allowed isolated men to know they were not alone, that their comrades were still fighting, and that there was still a chain of command to guide them. It gave them a sense of purpose and structure in an environment designed to strip away both. The battle of wills inside Hoa Lo reached its peak in the late 1960s as both sides pushed their strategies to the limit. The North Vietnamese authorities wanted the POWs to sign statements condemning the war, which could be used to influence international public opinion and fuel the anti-war movement in the United States. The POWs, guided by Stockdale's Code of Conduct, resisted these demands with extraordinary creativity and courage. One of the most famous acts of resistance occurred during a televised interview in 1966, when Commander Jeremiah Denton was forced to appear before foreign journalists to declare he was being treated well. As he spoke, Denton repeatedly blinked his eyes in Morse code, spelling out the word torture, alerting the world to the true conditions inside the prison. Inside the walls, the tap code became a constant, rhythmic pulse. Prisoners tapped through walls, swept floors in patterns, and used coughs and sneezes to transmit messages. They established a strict chain of command, with Stockdale issuing the back U.S. policy: bowing back, airing views, admitting crimes, kissing ass, unity over self. This policy provided clear guidelines for the prisoners. They were to resist making anti-war statements, avoid bowing to their captors in public, and maintain unity at all costs. This organized resistance infuriated the prison administrators, leading to severe crackdowns, long periods of isolation for the leaders, and a grueling test of human endurance. The climax of this struggle was not a physical battle, but a silent psychological war where the weapons were dignity, discipline, and a refusal to break. The captors tried to isolate the leaders, placing men like Stockdale, Denton, and Sam Johnson in a special, high-security section of the prison known as Alcatraz. The Alcatraz gang, as they came to be known, consisted of 11 of the most recalcitrant prisoners who were kept in tiny, windowless cells with their legs in irons for up to 15 hours a day. But even there, the communication continued. They tapped through the thick walls, using their ankles to reach the lower parts of the brickwork when their hands were bound. In another remarkable display of resistance, Stockdale disfigured his own face with a heavy wooden stool and cut his scalp with a razor when he learned he was to be paraded before international journalists. He knew that the captors could not use a beaten and bloodied prisoner for propaganda purposes. His actions demonstrated a profound commitment to his duty and inspired his fellow captives to maintain their own resistance. The prisoners refused to yield their honor, creating a collective shield that the prison administration could not completely shatter. This period of intense confrontation showed that the battle for the minds of these men was one that the captors could not easily win, as long as the prisoners remained connected through their secret network. The psychological pressure on both sides was immense. The captors were under strict orders to produce results and secure confessions to show the world, while the prisoners were determined to uphold their military oath and protect their country's honor. This clash of wills created an environment of intense, quiet drama, where every tap on a wall was a declaration of defiance and every refused signature was a victory for the captive soldiers. The dynamics inside Hoa Lo began to shift dramatically after 1969. Following the death of President Ho Chi Minh and growing international pressure, including campaigns by POW families in the United States, the North Vietnamese government realized that the mistreatment of prisoners was damaging their global standing. The National League of Families of American Prisoners and Missing in Southeast Asia, led by women like Sybil Stockdale, had succeeded in making the treatment of POWs a major international issue. The treatment of the POWs began to improve gradually. Food rations became slightly better, and the intense physical abuse decreased. A major turning point occurred in November 1970, when U.S. Special Forces launched a daring raid on the Son Tay prison camp in an attempt to rescue POWs. Although the camp was empty because the prisoners had been moved shortly before due to flooding fears, the raid panicked the North Vietnamese authorities. Fearing further rescue attempts, they consolidated almost all American POWs from outlying camps into Hoa Lo. This backfired on the captors, as hundreds of Americans were now housed together in large communal bays, allowing them to openly organize, hold religious services, put on plays, and build an even stronger sense of community. In these large communal rooms, which the prisoners named after famous American hotels like the Waldorf Astoria, the POWs established a structured society. They organized educational classes, teaching each other foreign languages, mathematics, classical music, and history. They held regular religious services, constructed a makeshift choir, and even staged elaborate theatrical productions. This vibrant community life was a stark contrast to the years of isolation they had previously endured, and it served to strengthen their resolve and prepare them for their eventual return home. The long years of captivity finally drew to a close with the signing of the Paris Peace Accords in January 1973. In February and March of that year, Operation Homecoming began. The gaunt but proud men walked out of Hoa Lo, boarded American transport planes, and flew home to a nation that was deeply divided over the war, but united in its relief at their return. For many, the return was a joyous reunion, but it also marked the beginning of a long process of physical and psychological healing. The transition from the dark cells of Hoa Lo to the bright lights of American society was a challenge that would take years, and in some cases decades, to fully navigate. Many of the returned POWs went on to achieve great success in military, political, and civilian life, carrying with them the lessons of survival and solidarity they had learned in the depths of the Hanoi Hilton. The story of Hoa Lo Prison offers a profound lesson in the complexity of war and the resilience of the human spirit. For the American POWs, the experience was a crucible that tested their values, their sanity, and their loyalty. For Vietnam, Hoa Lo remains a symbol of a different struggle. Today, most of the old prison has been demolished to make way for a modern skyscraper, but a small section remains preserved as a museum. Interestingly, the museum exhibits focus heavily on the French colonial era, detailing the horrific treatment of Vietnamese revolutionaries who were imprisoned and executed there long before the first American pilot ever took to the skies. Visitors to the museum today are greeted by the dark, heavy stone walls and the original French guillotine used to execute Vietnamese patriots. The exhibits paint a vivid picture of the colonial oppression and the heroic resistance of the Vietnamese nationalists who suffered within those walls. The American POW era, however, is presented through a very different lens. The museum displays photographs of American pilots playing basketball, celebrating Christmas, and receiving medical treatment, presenting a narrative of humane and lenient treatment. This narrative stands in sharp contrast to the memoirs and testimonies of the men who lived through the experience, highlighting how history is remembered, framed, and utilized by different nations to construct their own national narratives. Yet, the legacy of Hoa Lo also contains a powerful story of reconciliation. Decades after his release, John McCain returned to Vietnam as a U.S. Senator, working alongside his former captors to normalize diplomatic relations between the United States and Vietnam. McCain, who had suffered severe injuries when he was shot down and spent over 5 years in captivity, became a leading voice for peace and reconciliation. His efforts, along with those of other veterans like John Kerry, helped to transform the relationship between the two former enemies. The very place that once symbolized the deepest division between two nations ultimately became a bridge toward peace. It shows that even the deepest wounds of war can eventually heal through mutual respect, open dialogue, and a shared commitment to building a better future. This remarkable transformation of a site of conflict into a symbol of reconciliation offers a powerful lesson for a world still divided by war and ideological differences. The legacy of Hoa Lo Prison reminds us that the human cost of war is paid not just in lives lost on the battlefield, but in the quiet endurance of those who survived the aftermath. The stories of the men who lived inside those stone walls teach us about the power of connection, the strength of the human spirit, and the capacity for reconciliation. Their survival was not just a matter of physical endurance, but of mental discipline and the refusal to let their humanity be stripped away. It is a powerful reminder of what can be achieved when people refuse to give up hope, even in the darkest and most desperate of circumstances. What do you think is the most remarkable aspect of the POW's survival strategy? How do you view the way different nations preserve and present their wartime history? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your perspective on these complex historical narratives and how they shape our understanding of the past. If you found this deep dive into history meaningful, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with others who want to understand the human stories behind the headlines. Your support helps us continue to bring these complex, powerful historical narratives to light. We strive to provide balanced, historically accurate accounts that look beyond the simple headlines to find the real human experiences that shape our world. By subscribing, you become part of a community that values deep, thoughtful historical exploration. We appreciate your time and your curiosity, and we look forward to continuing this historical journey together. Thank you for watching. And we will see you in the next episode as we explore another fascinating chapter of our shared global history.